Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Saturday Somm-Things. No non-alcoholic wine this week. James was very upset with me last week, so all alcohol all day long. It's going to be great. I'm joined today by Jonathan with Harvest Wine Company, and we were talking this week about what we wanted to do, focusing on Pinot Noir, and he thought it'd be kind of cool to do two different Pinot Noirs from Oregon, two from California, and within that, each coming from a different region. I know that when you walk into the store here, the Pinot Noir aisle in the store has everything mixed together. So you walk in, it's kind of overwhelming. It's organized roughly like most expensive at the top, and then it goes down, and it's alphabetical. So everything is a hodgepodge, and you're just standing there looking at a sea of labels. So I thought it'd be pretty useful to kind of like break this down a little bit so we can help people find the type of Pinot Noir that they like, because even though it is considered a pretty light, delicate grape, there's a lot of nuances between them depending on where they're grown and depending on what winemakers are doing with them as well. I love Oregon Pinot Noir, typically, but I'm always willing to be surprised and re-educated. So starting out with Evesham Wood. So this is one, I've actually visited this winery, and I love it. They have another wine called Hayden Fig that we carry too. And the Hayden Fig has a little owl on the label. And I used to have a rule that I don't buy wine that has animals on the label because I think it just means the wine's going to suck. And I've been proven wrong, and that's fine. But I really like the Hayden Fig, and they do a rosé too, which is pretty special. Tell me about Evesham Wood and teach me.
Evesham Wood is owned and run by Aaron Nuccio, who is also the owner of Hayden Fig. The story goes that after graduating from enology school, he actually worked with Evesham Wood because this was his favorite winery. This is what he wanted to style Hayden Fig after. And he was able to do that. After several years, the owners of Evesham Wood decided that they wanted to sell, and because they had so much respect for Aaron, they decided to sell to him. So even though he does make both wines, they are stylistically a little bit different. The Evesham Wood is a really defined, clear cut version of Pinot Noir, focusing typically on the cooler climate fruits, so cranberry and raspberry versus the richer fruits you typically find in especially Central Coast California. And this goes back to what Sian was saying, is that the terroir, the characteristics of the place it comes from really mold these wines into what they end up being. Great winemakers such as these typically focus on making the wine in the vineyard and not in the winery. The idea is that the fruit has its greatest expression, and rather than telling it what to do, you simply shepherd it and you let it express itself.
Nice. So for this one, what do you think that stylistically the difference is between Oregon Pinot Noirs and California?
One of the big things you're going to see is that as the climate is warmer as you move further south, then you're going to have a greater density of the wines. The fruit characteristic tends to move from the cooler climate fruits, like I was saying, cranberry and raspberry, to more cherry, more strawberry, and with that often comes higher alcohol. Oregon Pinots and actually the first California Pinot we have here are very cool climates, so you tend to have higher levels of acidity, lower levels of alcohol, and generally a more delicate, more finesse-based wine. Even though Pinot Noir is always typically lighter, a Pinot Noir from a warmer area, such as the last wine we have here, which is from Mission Ranch in the Central Coast, certainly is a fuller style.
I like this one that you mentioned, like the lighter raspberry, cranberry type fruit. For me too, sometimes I get like orange rind, and I usually take that as like a quality indicator. So I get that on some Burgundy Pinots too.
Absolutely.
And I think it's, I don't understand the magic or the chemistry behind it, but I think it's just a little way of knowing that the quality level is up there a little better, and it hasn't been something that's been soaking on its skins for weeks and is trying to extract as much flavor and alcohol and just, I know, things that are, I feel like they're ugly opposite of what Pinot Noir is supposed to be. Like, Pinot's very elegant.
And these producers, with the exception of the Timbre, the last one, they focus on free-run juice. They're not pressing their juice, so it ends up being the lighter, more delicate juice that comes out versus pressing it, where you're going to add a lot more weight, and typically at the expense of finesse.
Yeah. Ooh, that's so much bigger. That's cool. All right, so I like the Evesham Wood. I think definitely that kind of orange and cranberry note to it. I think too with Oregon, I picture kind of like the vines at the end of harvest and like little bonfires and smoke and just kind of this like kind of colder climate, and it's something like romantic. I think of like bonfires, and I think of particular food like duck confit and just like duck with orange sauce. It makes me hungry, and I think that's one thing too with Pinot Noir, like why you would have it earlier in the meal experience if you're doing wine pairings. Like it's higher acidity, it's lower alcohol, but it works with more lighter, delicate flavors. Like you could have Pinot Noir with a steak, like nothing wrong with that, but I think it shows off better with lighter dishes.
Absolutely. Lighter, more finesse-based dishes, but you don't have to be afraid of pairing it with something that has spice to it, something that is fatty, because the higher acidity absolutely cuts through that and cleanses the palate and definitely matches the wine. Or the food matches the wine very, very well.
All right, cool. Well, let's get into some of the differences between the Evesham Wood and the Lemelson.
So Evesham Wood is focused around Eola Amity Hills. Lemelson is actually produced from, it's all estate fruit. They have 7 different vineyards, which are all named after the original owners of the vineyards. These are responsible for going into their higher end bottling. The Jerome, named after the founder, Jerome Lemelson. And the differences stylistically is the Evesham Wood is a very, very clean cut, very focused style. Lighter fruit, higher acidity. Lemelson brings in a little bit more fruit, a little bit more spice. Part of this is due to the 30% new French oak that they use, and that will give you a little bit of oak presence, whereas with the Evesham Wood, it is oaked, but with virtually neutral oak.
Cool. Yeah, it definitely feels a lot more powerful. There's a significant more weight on the palate on this one, but then again, picking up the smoky bonfire type thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's coming from the oak, too.
And what you said about the romance of Willamette Valley and Oregon in general, they really have resisted the California system of being sold to larger producers, people incorporating just the name and then totally changing the brand. And this happens quite a bit, where if a great small producer of wine sells, they don't put it on the label, they don't tell people, they typically change where the fruit comes from, and they try to ride the popularity of that wine. Mm-hmm. All of these are very small production. There is some purchased fruit in the Evesham Wood, but it's purchased from 3 producers who they've known for many years and who have fantastic relationships with.
Cool. I was going to say another one on this, like childhood memories. I don't know why, but sometimes with the Oregon Pinot, I pick up coal, or the dust from coal. It reminds me back to when I grew up a very, very, very long time ago. We actually had a coal cellar in the house, and we would get coal deliveries. The truck would come up, open up the little hatch, and then throw the bags of coal in, and there'd be this dust cloud that would come off it, and I smell that on here. So I love memories.
It's also nice tasting with people. We talk about planted ideas where you could never come up with something, and yet when somebody says it, you're like, oh, that's what that is. Yeah. And that's why tasting with people, tasting with educated professionals is absolutely great for all of us.
Such as ourselves.
Yes. No, I learn from people in this industry every day.
All right, so then going into Pei. Pei is a winery that have been around for a while and definitely, I think, have set a tone or a benchmark for really quality, cool climate California fruit. And everybody thought they were crazy when they went to the extremes to find the land that they wanted to plant vineyards on. Nobody else was up there. It's remote. When I lived in San Francisco, they actually did a thing called Pei Somm Camp. So all the Somms would go up and camp in the vineyard and then sit around and drink wine for 2 days. It was fabulous. It was also very educational because we got to walk some of the vineyards and things too. But this is Nick and Andy Pei, and Nick is married to Vanessa Wong. Is that correct? And Vanessa is the winemaker, and Nick's involved. Andy is the super gregarious, like wicked smart guy. He talks a lot about the currents coming up and currents coming down, how that really affects the microclimate that they're in there. And it's literally just, you said, what, 4 miles, 3 miles from the coast?
4 miles from the coast.
Yeah.
Which is funny. The Sonoma Coast appellation actually extends 36 miles inland, which is really not coastal the way we look at it. Nick and Andy Pei, as well as some other wineries such as Hirsch, are pushing for a West Sonoma Coast appellation that will only extend 4 miles inland. The vineyards are constantly covered with fog. It's very, very hilly there. And actually, overall, West Sonoma Coast is cooler than Willamette Valley as a whole. Producing, once again, really defined wines, very cool climate, very elegant, low in alcohol.
I think this reminds me, actually, a little bit of the Ocean Wood, the fruit side on there.
It's funny because you can take the first and the third being from different places, but once again, you look at the climates, you look at the focus of the winemakers, very little adulteration, keeping alcohol low, using free-run juice, and you produce wines that are more in that vein than two different wines from California. So these should have the greatest contrast of what we're tasting today, and they're both from California.
I've always been a fan of Pay. Like, they do a great job with Syrah as well. And they play around with a couple of white wine varietals.
Viognier, especially, but also Chardonnay. And once again, they keep to that kind of ideology of keeping the wines as true to the place they come from as possible. They want you to taste Sonoma Coast when you taste these. Same thing with these. And then, of course, with the last one, which is Monterey, they, of course, want you to taste the fact that it's coming from a warmer climate, and that will be present.
Cool. Let's get into it. So last wine, I don't know anything about this one. So this is the one that it's like we're at work right now. You can give me the sales pitch on the timbre.
So this is timbre. Timbre, as far as music is concerned, is called the color of music. It's how, say, three different people singing the same song, obviously the voices are different. And so what they wanted to express here is a different expression of Central Coast, and instead of making it really massive like a lot of them have, they keep this medium full. They're only using totally neutral French oak. So once again, this is going to be more of an expression of a single vineyard, which is Mission Ranch from Monterey, but without any adulteration. Certainly the fullest of the three. These are all hovering around 13% alcohol. This comes in at 14, and that is, of course, a product of the warmer climate.
I like that. It's definitely, I can feel the alcohol in it, but it also has kind of like crunchiness. It's like biting into a red skin apple.
Exactly.
It's really interesting. Or kind of like brambly pie, like fruit pie. So it's more concentrated, but it's not like a fruit bomb like some other nameless Pinot Noirs that we won't talk about. It's not like that. It still has intensity and power and impact, but just kind of toned back a little.
Absolutely. When we were talking to the winemaker Joshua, he said that he didn't want people to say his wines were like Burgundy. He didn't want people to say his wines were like something else. He wanted his wines to be an expression unto themselves. And too often in this industry, people see what's popular and they try to focus on making a wine to suit that style. Whereas all of these producers are making the same wine that they started with and the same wine that in 20 years, they'll make the same, whether it's popular or not. So yeah, once again, very true to the vineyard and true to what the area wants to produce versus what some people are asking for.
The markets. Well, cool. This was very cool, very educational, very fun. I
Thank
love
you.
getting a chance to taste these side by side. So
Absolutely fantastic.
thanks for playing along with us.
That was very
We're doing
enjoyable.
good, yes. And then, as usual, these wines will all be featured. Just keep an eye out for Sheila's email. Then if you kind of enjoy all of this on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, follow us so you get the little reminders on Saturdays. And we'll have special pricing on these. Sheila will send out the email and remind everybody on that. And we'll have a little display over by register 9, 10, 11 if you want to come in and pick them up. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you, Jonathan,
Thank
very
you
much.
for having me.
I don't know which one's my favorite. Cheers.
Pay.
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 Cheers.
Cheers.